years ago, the universe nudged at me to plant a flower farm, of all things. My husband and I had bought a fixer-upper property down in Ventura, just down the hill, and with the fixer-upper came a half an acre of land. I had no green thumb, for the record, so my story was a little bit different, but I kept following this nudge, and I started experimenting with these dials and all these different individual elements that it took to fire up a flower farm. The most obvious one is sunshine, right? Like, you need enough sun for the flowers, but not too much sun. You need consistency. The most interesting thing I learned about flower farming, one of those elements, was wind. I planted over 1,000 little seeds. Before you moved them out from the greenhouse out into the big yard or the beds or the grounds, you would plug in a little fan and you would blow wind, and the wind would strengthen the stems and get them ready to be transplanted outside. And so the wind, that resistance, ultimately, strengthened and caused resilience over time. So life is so good. I'm out in my flower farm and I'm like stoked. I'm like, I did this. This is amazing. My husband comes home one day from the doctor and he says, can you sit down? And I was like, actually, I can't. Like, I'm really busy. I got to get to these corporate emails, which is, ultimately paying for this flower farm. And then I got to go water the flowers because I got to be consistent. And he says, they think it's lung cancer. And I don't quite remember my reaction. I just know it was exaggerated, and I think I might have actually laughed, and I was like, that's ridiculous. You're 39 years old, you've never even smoked. You're a surfer, you're a soccer player, like crazy. Well, fast forward, it was stage 4 by the time we figured everything out. It had metastasized to his brain and his lungs and his lymph nodes. One day I was standing out in the flowers and I was like, universe, I get it. Like, I get why you called me to plant this flower farm, because it became this place for me during this time of beginning treatments and doctoring and all these things where I could leave my grief and have a safe place in nature and leave a lot of F-bombs. Those dahlias heard a lot of curse words, I will say that. And then I could kind of like put on my caregiver hat and move forward. And so fast forward, cancer's an expensive business. We ended up having to sell the house and the farm and the flowers in Ventura, and we thought, where the heck are we gonna go? Well, Ojai, obviously, right? We had to stay near doctors in LA, but we also wanted this reprieve and this place where my husband and I could both do some healing. And where was the very first place I came when I got to Ojai? It was literally here, this parking lot. Because like when the world falls out from under you, you can't do this alone. You need community. And so I started volunteering. I was so excited to walk the dogs. I'd never walked dogs before. I never had a dog before. Started volunteering, and that led to fostering. And I came home one day and asked my husband, can we foster a dog? And look, there's never a good time to foster a dog or adopt a dog. It was did not feel like good timing. But we took home a dog named Letty, which was suggested by one of the staff. She was a beautiful black dog. She'd been here almost 2 years. We've had her for about 8 months now, and she's been amazing. But what I want to close with is something really interesting I realized is that this dog was really no different than the flowers. She's a living, breathing thing. And when I started to kind of play with all of those dials for Letty, whether it was consistency and showing up with a routine and food and care and making sure she knew we were always coming back for her. She had some medical issues, and I called in some of the staff from the Humane Society, and they helped me both come visit her when she went through treatments and also financially. So I want you to know tonight, I have personally received some of your donations to help Letty with some really challenging medical issues that she is now wonderfully on the other side of. I want to invite you to think about all those individual dials that ultimately create this ecosystem that can really invite things to thrive. What are you contributing? Who's bringing the sunshine? Who's bringing the good vibes and the optimism and the encouragement that these dogs are going to get adopted and have a better story and have a final next chapter? That wind builds resistance and builds strength over time. So I just want to thank you on behalf of myself, on behalf of our wonderful dog Letty, who's 79 pounds and she's a lot of energy, so I couldn't bring her tonight. And behalf of my husband, who's in the back filming, taking some photos. So thank you all. Enjoy your night. Thank you for listening.